Hello, guys. Good to see you through YouTube. Hopefully, you all get the signal properly. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties just at the beginning of our classes, so sorry for the delay. I would be extremely grateful if you confirm in the comments on YouTube that you can see both me and hear me and see the screen with the presentation, because as you can see, I've managed to solve the problem that you were mentioning in the feedback towards the last classes. Yeah, I would be grateful if you let me know that you can hear me and see me properly in the comments to the video, just as we made it last week. So I'd be extremely grateful. Okay, I can see first comments that you can see. So okay, it's great. Guys, so today we will be following the topic we started last week. So just to recall and remind to you all that we've been dealing with the historical and political aspects of Polish football. So it's a very peculiar moment in national political history of Poland, late 19th and early 20th century, because this is basically that time when the Polish state technically does not exist. So the football is being born and developed in on Polish lands. I would say apart from state institutions, right? Apart from state institutions. So last week, of course. Last week we went through the history of historical and political aspects of football in so-called Austrian or Austro-Hungarian annexation, which was the most liberal one in late 19th and early 20th century. So today we go to Prussian annexation. So that part of Polish lands which in late 18th century have been captured by the Kingdom of Prussia and later, of course, were governed by the German Empire. Just to mention one thing, football did not get that popular in Germany in late 19th century in comparison to other states of Europe. There were at least a couple of circumstances, a couple of reasons. First of all, it has been perceived as a British tradition, as element of British culture. And since the German state, the German Empire unified, I mean, it was created, of course, basing on political power of Prussia and Chancellor Bismarck. So, starting from that moment, the German state was suspicious against anything that was coming through the British Islands, and the chase for political power in Europe started between Germany and the UK. So football, it got some popularity, but it wasn't considered to be the top sport. So also because of the military drill and the organization of society, the authorities of both Prussia and German Empire, they prefer gymnastics, for instance. But nevertheless, all right. The part of Polish lands that were governed in late 19th century by Germans, basically, it was the most organized part of Polish former state, right? So there were a lot of institutions, social, cultural ones. Late 19th century, this is a time of for so-called Kulturkampf. I don't know if you know that the notion, the Kulturkampf, is a cultural fight, a cultural fight. So it was a very strong and very repressive attempt to Germanize Polish people in western part of Polish lands, which the Polish people, of course, opposed. So you should not be surprised that development of football and development of football institutions was used also for patriotic purpose. So this is again a common feature of let's say the social and cultural dimension of football on Polish lands in late 19th in late 19th century. All right, I can see. Sorry, I'm looking for the second screen. I can see that more and more people are joining. So I will be again very grateful if anyone can post a comment that you can see me and the presentation properly and you can hear me, and then we can follow the presentation. So yeah, one of the first clubs in the region was Sport Club Poznania. It was founded in 1907 as Normannia, and at the very beginning it was the only Polish club in Prussian annexation. So in 1912 there was a very important moment, a very important event. Sorry guys. It was a very important event. So it was so-called the Normannia Britannia incident. Britannia was a top German team that played very good football. So they went to Poznan. They went to Poznan in order to play a friendly exhibition match. So at that time, it was not truly allowed to speak Polish at public gatherings. So during the match, Polish footballers playing for Poznania, they were speaking Polish, and one of them. Sorry guys, there are some technical problems I need to solve. I'll be right back. Sorry guys. Alright guys, I hope it's gonna work this time. All right. So I hope we are back. So I was talking about the Normannia Britannia incident in 1912. So just to recall it, because I don't know where exactly the stream has stopped. So Britannia was a very reputable German team, which arrived to Poznan to play a friendly match. And during the match, one of the Polish footballers was expelled from the pitch for speaking Polish. So the rest of the team, in order to protest against discrimination, they have left the pitch. So the match was cancelled, and it was pretty important, pretty huge event with its political and social and cultural meaning. So the Poznania Sport Club needed to rename. So that Normannia was replaced by the German Normannia was replaced by Polish Normannia, and then in 1913 the name of the club changed to the first Polish Sport Club Poznania. However, this is the first, but not the most important club, because the most important club of that time in the region was Warta Poznań, founded in 1912 as the first officially Polish football club, since Poznania Normannia was a general sport club not solely devoted to football, however, with the football section too. All right, I can see your comments that it's working. So I'm glad to be back. Sorry, some technical developments occurred here, but we're fine right now. So Warta Poznań. Warta is the name of the river. Warta is the name of the river that flows through Poznań since almost until the outbreak of World War One. The German system on Polish lands was pretty strict and repressive. It was definitely not allowed to use the name or colors linked to patriotic values or symbols. So the founders of Warta Poznań, they chose green as their color. So yeah, and the name of the club referred to, let's say, topographic element, the river, as I said, that flows through the city. In August 1912, Warta committed a very big success, a win 9-2 against Hertha, and then in October 1912, Warta won against Normannia. So this was like a series of pretty successful matches against German teams. So as you can imagine, it was pretty important for Polish people, right? Because, well, this is what we have been saying about the symbolic nature of football, right? You can be politically subordinated to someone, but then on the pitch, David sometimes beats Goliath. So you can fight for your right. You can prove your superiority on a level of football, right? So the role of Warta Poznań was also very important in the region. You can see a historic photo of the team here. So letter W, just the first letter of the name of the club, symbolized the clue here. So it's important. Yeah, we need to get here. It's important to know that since the war was coming, the Polish case started to be important for the first time in history. So basically, despite the Prussian-Austrian war in the 60s of 19th century, for more than 100 years, all of the annexators, all of the partitioners, the three countries that shared Polish lands in late 18th century, which is Germany, Austria, and Russia. So basically, they had an agreement on their international politics, and definitely they had agreement on the Polish case, right? So all of them were pretty much interested in keeping the Polish state as non-existent. All right, guys, I'm extremely sorry about the technical problems. I don't know what's going on because the internet connection is stable and safe. I don't know why it's happening, but sorry for that. Hopefully, we can get back to the topic. So yeah, you should know that as closer to the war it was, it's the Polish case became more and more important. Because there were millions of young Polish people living on Polish lands, so possible recruits for the forthcoming war. However, because of the policy that the Germans chose in the last decades, they were waiting pretty long. To go to show some symptoms of liberalization of political and social life on Polish lands under the German rule. The case of the Union of Polish Sports Societies, which was trying to be established as a Polish Association of Football, failed at first, because the Germans did not the Germans did not allow the organization to be created. So later on, just at the outbreak, before the outbreak of war in 1913, the UPSA, so Union of Polish Sports Societies. I deliver you the English names because they are easier to understand for you. It was established in 1913, and in 1913 it was the first unofficial at this point football competition in Wielkopolska, so the region. Poznań is the capital of that region. So an important and pretty interesting case happened in 1913, because Warta decided to make a trip to Kraków. And Kraków, as you already know, was located in Austro-Hungarian Austrian annexation. So in 1913, it was the first match between two Polish teams from different annexations. They played a series of exhibition matches. However, still, technically, it was a match between the German team and the Austro-Hungarian team. But yeah, it was the first time that two Polish football clubs representing two different annexations were played against each other, which of course was an opportunity for some national patriotic celebration in Kraków, where, as we said, the regime, I would say, social, political regime, cultural one, was much more liberal. All right. So last but not least, this is another proof, to some extent, for Richard Giulianotti's theory that the development of football it flows just as the spread of industrial revolution does. Sorry. So Russian lands, the Polish lands that fell into Russian Empire, so they were underdeveloped. Of course, they were underdeveloped. The Russian lands, they were underdeveloped. So so the moment that the organized football appeared in those lands came a bit later. So as you can see on the slide, we have like three issues here. I would like to share with you. So first of all, yeah, it's hard to translate into English, but the Warsaw Sport Club, as I named it here, is Warszawianka. It was a general sport club, a big general sport club that was founded in Warsaw in 1907. It was based primarily on school teams playing football, but not only football. There were a lot of other disciplines included. So since 1905, we have some information about children playing football all around. So most probably it developed through cultural diffusion from other parts of other Polish lands, other Polish annexation from other annexations. So the club was established in 1907, and then in 1908 the regular school competition started. Since 1910. There were 4 editions of so-called Goldstand trophy. Goldstand was a philanthropist, a millionaire philanthropist of Jewish Poles, a Pole of Jewish descent. So he founded that trophy to make those teams to make a purpose for their play. And also had number of local, unofficial, fully amateur football rather teams than clubs. That were operating all across the city and its direct neighborhood. However, another important city of the Russian annexation. We will get back to Warsaw soon, so that's why I said. However, another important city in Russian annexation, a Polish city, was Łódź. Maybe to exaggerate a bit, but Łódź sometimes was nicknamed as so-called Polish Manchester. It was highly industrialized city, the center of industry. on that plant. So it observed a huge migration. It observed a huge migration. People from countryside, from outside the city, they were moving. They were moving to Łódź to find job and to change their way of life. So pretty soon, football clubs got established in 1908. In 1908, it's ŁKS, Łódzki Klub Sportowy. Sorry, the first Polish football club, official football club in Łódź, and then in 1910 it's Widzew Łódź. The Widzew it's a name of the district. Widzew is the name of the district. The name of ŁKS is just like an acronym of the full name of the club, which refers to the city of Łódź. However, Widzew is a team with a very rich and deep industrial working class tradition. So that what you can see in the crest of the club, the RTS, this is Robotnicze Towarzystwo Sportowe. So this is like a workers' sport society. So the club since the very beginning was deeply rooted to into the working class. In 1912, we have information about the first official competition in Łódź for local football teams. So this is interesting and important if you look on that from that perspective. So basically, you can see the same processes. All right. So you have foundation of the first club. Of the first clubs. Then you have before you can find some unofficial amateur, mainly school football being played, right? And then you have a regular establishment of a regular regular. So from Łódź we will move back again to Warsaw, because in 1911 you have the establishment of the oldest football club in Warsaw, which is Polonia Warszawa. So if you watch the crest, you can find some clue related to, let's say, patriotic and national issues, right? So first of all, you have the name, Polonia. This is the name of the non-existent state in Latin. However, pretty clear for everyone interested. You can see white and red colors, which are national colors of Poland, as you already know, and you can see the black color, the black color. So the black symbolized in late 19th century in some parts of, let's say, upper classes of society, of Polish nation. It symbolized the mourn caused by the lack of freedom, the lack of independence. So some members of the aristocracy, the nobles, the elites, especially women, they were dressed in black. They were not wearing jewelry, just to show how unhappy they are. Because of the lack of independence. So it's like a passive resistance, right? Passive resistance, passive opposition. So Polonia Warszawa fit into that trajectory. So the name colors of the club become even more symbolic. On the next first slide here, you can see an archive, an old photo of the team. So you can see the badge, you can see the emblem of the club located on the shirt. The nickname of Polonia, traditional nickname of Polonia, is the black shirts. Because as you can see, they were playing in black colors. Also somehow linking the colors and crest of the club with the national and patriotic issue. The next part of the story will refer directly to World War One. So 1914, it starts a series of events which are extremely important, not only for, let's say, the history of football in Poland, but also for the history of the country, right? Because for the first time since more than 100 years, two partitioners, two annexators, are on the other side of the barricade, right? So the Central States, including Germany and Austria-Hungary, fell into conflict with the Allies, which means also Russia. All right. So it was seen as a political and military one, to some extent, as a political and military chance for the Polish people to get the freedom back, to get the independence. So the Polish case was on the table again, because sooner or later, all of those partitioners fighting on different sides of the barricade, as we said, sooner or later they needed to address some political issues towards the Poles. So this is a time I would say, national and patriotic resurrection. However, still Polish soldiers, they are basically fighting in the uniforms of Germany and Austria-Hungary and Russia. Of course, we have the case of Piłsudski, but this is not truly the issue. To make a long story short, the Poles are fighting on different fronts of World War I, but however, the state still is non-existent. And this is a very important element of the story, because in 1916, the best and the most powerful and the greatest club on earth was founded, which is of course Legia Warszawa. As you know, as you can see, I continue my football jersey challenge. So I will try to deliver each lecture in different jersey. That one is pretty important for me, because this is a match-worn jersey from Champions League match, Sporting Lisbon, Sporting Portugal versus Legia, which we lost that match 1-0. However, it was the single match in that campaign, in that season, that Legia played in red. So it's like a pretty unique jersey I like very much. But let's get back to business. So we have been talking about Legia Warszawa. Legia was founded in 1916 in Volhynia region, which is a part of Ukraine right now. Again, to make a long story short, before the outbreak of World War I, there were like two main political approaches towards the forthcoming war. So some political, cultural, social leaders, they said, yeah, we must fight alongside with the Germans against Russia, because Russia is the biggest threat. Russia is the biggest oppressor in the history of Poland, right? So some part of political elites, they were counting on Germany and Austria-Hungary, looking on the level of liberalism that was implemented in late 19th century in Austro-Hungarian annexation. So they were counting on that, let's say, kind of outcome of World War I. So the Central States gonna win, at least on Eastern Front, which means they're gonna shape political map of Central Eastern Europe, right? So a representative of that approach was Józef Piłsudski. So he started to form Polish legions, Polish military units as an element, as a part of Austro-Hungarian army. So in 1916, they were fighting in Eastern Front in Volhynia, and those Piłsudski's legions, because that military unit was called Polish legions. So they asked Piłsudski, as the military commanders on a pretty official path to allow to play football and to form a club, which was called later on Legia. So they got the approval. The interesting thing is that Piłsudski's legions, they were formed in Austrian-Hungarian annexation, right? So they started a military path in Kraków. So they gathered mainly members of intelligentsia and upper classes from Austro-Hungarian annexation. So there were a lot of people who used to play football in Kraków, in clubs from Kraków, and they were among the first footballers of Legia Warszawa. So Legia did not commit a loss during the World War I. However, they were playing mainly exhibition matches with teams that represented different other units of Austro-Hungarian army. So in the 20s, Legia moved back to Warsaw. I mean, moved to Warsaw. Sorry, not back. Legia moved to Warsaw. There is an issue. Which raises debates among historians because well, the length of the period that the club exists. I mean, so the time it exists. This is sort of legitimization for the club. Right, older you are, I mean, more reputable you are. So you were not founded yesterday, right? You have a long history. So there's a very big debate among historians because through the very turbulent times of in the history of Poland after the end of World War One, right? Because the war ended in 1918. However, the Polish government was still fighting for freedom, for independence, and for the borders for the next, let's say, 5 years. 3 years it was a military fight, and then 2 more strictly diplomatic one. However, it was not a good time for football. It was not a good time for football at all. So Legia moved to Warsaw. So then many of the people who were engaged in the operation of the club, they were brought back to front. So I would say that way. The historians that are not pretty much fans of Legia said that Legia then collapsed and then was recreated as a different club. So both sides have their arguments. However, yeah, we of course count the history of the club continuously, right? So it's since 1916. All right, Legia will be back in our story. Here you can see a photo of the one of the first teams playing football behind the front line. So you can find guys, especially in the second row, in the military uniform. Yeah, the black stripe, which was characteristic for the first outfit. The black stripe that was characteristic for the first outfit of Legia also symbolized to some extent the mourn because of the lack of the freedom. Yeah, you can see military men. They are military men taking exercise, resting behind the front line in 1916. All right, guys. Since the independence was fought back, since the state was reinstated, the state was recreated after 123 years of slavery, you can observe a wider process of creation or recreation of many important political and cultural and social institutions, right? Just like a parliament, let's say, right? So the parliament in 1919, you have the first election to the newly formed national parliament. So football follows that way. Football follows that way, and in 1919 in Warsaw, the Polish Football Association, Polski Związek Piłki Nożnej, is founded, which is like another step in the process of, I would say, organization of social and cultural life of the people, of the Polish people, in the circumstances of independence, and then of course it's a tool of influence in order to get international recognition. We will be back in that topic in a minute. So the association was founded in 1919 in Warsaw. However, in 1921 it moved to Krakow. In 1920, they started to arrange first national competition, right? But it was interrupted by the outbreak of Polish-Soviet War. So, as you know, in August 1920, Poland was put much in danger because of the Soviet offensive. There was a big battle at the outskirts of Warsaw, so-called the Miracle at Vistula, where the Poles prevailed and combated Soviets. However, the country was in a big danger because of the Soviet offensive. So the competition was cancelled, interrupted in 1920. However, it get back in 1921. Cracovia became the first official Polish champion in football. However, it was not a league competition. It was not a league competition. The league was established in 1927, and we will be back in that to that topic, to that issue in a moment. In December 1921, those brave men represented Poland for the first time on the level of international football. So these are the members of the first national Polish football team which participated in a international exhibition match against Hungary in Budapest. In Budapest, Poland lost. Hungarians, they had a better team and they had deeper, richer, and longer football traditions. However, again, it will become pretty symbolic. I've made the research once. I haven't finished it yet, but I have some initial outcomes, some initial conclusions. So, in the mid-war period, you basically try to play with your allies. So I've combined all of the matches played by Polish national team since between 1921 and 1939. So yeah, unless the game was drawn in sort of competition, qualification or whatever. So the authorities basically tried to play against countries, against teams that were perceived as allies. All right. The curiosity here may be important later on throughout our next topics is that Hungary was the first and the last opponent before the outbreak of World War II. So the first and the last match in the mid-war period was played against Hungary. All right, guys. Let's move forward. So another important element, another important moment in the story is 1923, when Poland is accepted in FIFA. So Poland gets the membership in FIFA. It is very important because bigger the number of institutions that recognize you is, so more recognized you are, so more legitimized your existence is. So it was very important, and it was highly supported by the state authorities, especially Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that Polish attempt to get into FIFA, which successfully ended in 1923. 1923 is also the year when the Polish borders for the mid-war period are finally confirmed, confirmed and recognized on international level. So, like, it's a parallel activity of both football authorities and state authorities. All right, guys. So. Basically, in 1923, Poland stopped fighting for existence. Poland stopped fighting for existence and started, let's say, a regular life. So it was a good and a very interesting time for Polish football. So the next period, 1923-1939, of course, it's not, I would say, a just periodization, and we do not have time to explain the whole story to you. However, there are some important highlights. I wanted to share with you. So first of all, you could observe a new social and political map of Poland also through football, because you have new football clubs. On one hand, you have the spread of popularity of the game. So the game gets more and more popular, more and more people are involved. So they establish clubs. So number of clubs is rising. So you have new clubs that represent some important changes on Polish lands. So some of the clubs they are strictly and strongly linked with their regionality. So regions like Upper Silesia, represented by Ruch Hajduki Wielkie, then Ruch Chorzów, established in 1920. The maritime region is represented by Arka Gdynia. Gdynia used to be a fisherman village, and then since Gdańsk was announced a free city under the auspicions of League of Nations, Poland needed a big maritime port. So there's a political decision to build a new big modern port in Gdynia. So Gdynia faces rapid urbanization and industrialization, and then again a football club appears in 1929. It's important to know that 30% of inhabitants of Polish lands were representing ethnic and national minorities. So the structure of football reflected that too. You can find clubs like Hagibor Przemyśl, Hasmona Lwów, Maccabi Warszawa, Hakoah Bielsko, Barkoch Barzeszów. So even in smaller territories, in smaller cities, the Jewish minority, sometimes being majority in particular city or town, was very well organized, was creating and establishing not only football but general sport club. So the Jewish minority was also represented through sport and through football, which arose, of course, some ethnic and political tensions, but still. The new structure of football, again, reflected the economic, political, social, and cultural changes on Polish lands since the end of World War II and the end of the fight for the borders. So it's just another proof that football can be seen as a useful tool for explaining political, social, and cultural history of Poland. Here on the screen, on the next slide, you can see a team, a Jewish sport team. So yeah, you can feel the spirit. I like this photo a lot. Because it represents the Poland that does not exist anymore. Right? You definitely know that through the Holocaust, through the World War II, and through the German occupation of Polish lands of that time, the Jews, they were all. Sorry, guys. I think these technical problems, they are somehow linked with YouTube and the usage of the network, because everything works fine here. So let's try just to finish that lecture today, and then we'll consider maybe moving to Google Meet. Because I don't know why the last lecture went smoothly, and right now every 15 minutes I have some problems with streaming that video to you. No worries, I will show the presentation. I will share the presentation with you, so you're gonna get it. At the end. All right. So I was just talking when the technical problem interrupted me. I was just talking about the Poland that does not exist anymore. Because what you can see on the screen, a Jewish sport team. So statistically, most probably, almost everyone on that photo was killed during World War II through Holocaust or any other horribilities of war. So it's an important point not to forget and to remember that element of heritage of Polish football too. All right. So despite the football representing the political and ethnic divisions, you can find also very important political clash, which was important also on international level. Guys, in 1927, the league is founded. So the championship of Poland will be won through the league competition. All right. 1927 is the peak of tension in Polish-German relations. All right. So you have a trade war. You have many other issues that cause problems. You have the Locarno Treaty. You have an attempt of the German attempt to get back in the first line of European politics in the post-World War reality. So yeah, there's a tension. There's a tension. There's a Polish-German tension that can be felt on the streets. It can be observed. So 1927, the first season organized through the league competition observes a splendid form by FC Katowice, and FC Katowice is a German team from the Polish city of Katowice. The Upper Silesia after the war, majority of Upper Silesia was included on Polish lands. However, it included also a pretty big number of German minority. And still, because of the border in Silesian region was shaped politically in a very tough process, also some Polish people remained on the other side of the border. So FC Katowice represented German minority, and they have splendid form. They were playing a great season. And yeah, everyone was pretty much afraid. You may say afraid that the German team representing German minority may win the league, right? The first edition of the league. So politically, it would be a splendid gift for the other side in that period of Polish and German tension. So FC Katowice was chased by Wisła Kraków. And then in 1927, the final decisive match was to be played in Katowice between the German team representing the German minority and Wisła. So just to show you how important it was. Just wanted to let you know that the Polish government organized special trains from Kraków to Katowice just to provide as many football fans as possible who would support Wisła in that important match. The match ended in a scandal. So in the 75th minute, as far as I remember, the Wisła Kraków got the penalty. They were to execute the penalty. But the thing was that the German team already left the pitch. So the match ended in a huge scandal and a riot on the stand, and the referee was strictly and highly accused for supporting Wisła in that match. Wisła was on the lead 2-0, and then FC Katowice scored most probably a proper goal, but the referee didn't allow it. They said it will not count. So it was like the first element, and then that penalty was perceived as highly unfair by footballers of FC Katowice, so they left the pitch. So Henryk Reimann, the captain and best player of Wisła at that time, scored the penalty to the empty goal, and then the riots occurred on the stand, and then the referee lost control totally over the match and finished it 12 or 13 minutes before the clock. So the match ended in a scandal. Wisła became a champion of Poland, the first one who got the title through the league competition, and then Przegląd Sportowy, the biggest Polish sport daily of that time. Well, on the next day in the editorial they wrote, well, okay, everyone knew that the German team cannot be a champion of Poland in this season. So it fueled up the discussions and debates over that match and whether the referee was delivering his duty in a proper way. All right, another interesting case is the Poland-Czechoslovakia World Cup qualification match in 1933. As I said before, in 93 and 94. As I said before, in the mid-war period, the opponents you chose for exhibition matches, friendly matches, basically they represented some deeper circumstances of foreign policy of the state. So Poland was playing rather against neutral or seen as allies countries on level of football than with the enemies. Well, but you cannot choose an opponent when you have to play the qualification match. In 1934, there was a World Cup to be staged in Italy, and Poland for the first time decided to participate in the qualification. All right, and simultaneously throughout the whole mid-war period, Poland operates an international conflict with Czechoslovakia. So it's a territorial dispute, also political one. And despite possible cooperation between Poland and Czechoslovakia, could form an alliance that may have prevailed against the rising political power of Hitler, for instance. It never happened. However, Poland and Czechoslovakia were drawn into qualification match for that World Cup. It was the first World Cup qualification ever, because in 1930, for the first edition of the World Cup, which was played in Uruguay, the organizers they rather had problem to gather enough teams to hold the whole tournament. So it was the first tournament, the first one to be staged in Europe, of course, and the first one when more teams were interested in participation than FIFA had the spots. So qualification matches had to be played. Poland drawn Czechoslovakia, so it was extremely important match for political reason, and I would say that the political authorities of Poland were not pretty happy with that draw, because with that opponent, because Czechoslovakia was very good in football, much better than Poland. So the first match was played in Warsaw. This is the photo you can see on the slide. The first match was played in Warsaw, and Czechoslovakia won 2-1. The score does not necessarily reflect the nature of the game, because the Czechoslovaks, they were controlling the game for 90 minutes, so they could win more. So the second leg was to be staged in Prague in spring 1934. So everyone pretty much expected a huge win of Czechoslovakia. So the Polish authorities, they started to find possibility not to participate in that match. However, the players, they want to play. So there were some talks between the authorities of Polish Football Association whether they consider resigning from playing that second match. So both authorities of Polish Football Association and the players, they wanted to play. So what did the Ministry of Foreign Affairs do? They cancelled passports. They did not issue passports for that match, so the Polish team could not travel to Czechoslovakia. And what is, in my opinion, extremely interesting is the reason why. What was the justification for not issuing passports for the national team? So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in official communication has stated it will not serve the Polish foreign policy. It will be not good for the foreign policy of Poland. So it would be not good to play and possibly lose a match in Prague. So it's another record we have, because technically FIFA cancelled that match. So we were the first one to cancel the match in qualification and to get the KO result 3-0 and to be disqualified that way from the tournament. So yeah, this way or another, Polish national team again fell on the chart of history of football. And then we have 1939-1944 period, a dreadful one because of the horribles of the war. However, still here you can find some interesting and, in my opinion, important elements of political side of football. Guys, the guy on the left, in the mid of the photo, is Ernest Dmowski, the best striker in late mid-war period in Poland. So the photo was taken in 1938 in Strasbourg in France, where Poland played for the first and the last time before the outbreak of World War II in the World Cup. So Poland faced Brazil. One of the described as one of the best matches of that World Cup. After the extra time, Poland has lost 5-6. Poland has lost 5-6. However, that guy on a pitch, on a photo, Ernest Dmowski, he scored 4 goals. So he was the first, and for many decades, the only one to score 4 goals in a single World Cup. So he held the record, and that record was beaten in 1994 when Oleg Salenko scored 5 goals for Russia during the American World Cup. But getting back to the story, so Dmowski scored 4 goals in that match. Poland lost, but the players, when they came back to the homeland, they were celebrated as heroes. They were celebrated as heroes because of mighty, legendary Brazil with Leonidas, the best Brazilian footballer of that time, on the pitch, scoring, as far as I recall, 3 goals in that match. So, despite losing the match, Poland, Polish players, they were welcomed as heroes in Poland, and Dmowski was highly celebrated. Ernest Dmowski, well, to be honest, Ernest Dmowski was neither Polish or German. He was Silesian. He was the local one. His family was living in Polish lands, so he was playing for a Polish club, Ruch Hajduki Wielkie, later Ruch Chorzów, a very successful team in late 30s. So Dmowski was consistently scoring a lot of goals, being a top goal scorer of the championship. So I would say a hero, one of the biggest stars of Polish football in late 30s. And then on the image on your right, you have Ernest Dmowski too, in the uniform, in the jersey of the national football team of the Third Reich. How could that happen? Guys, well, Dmowski was most probably among those people who, as I said, they consider themselves neither German or Polish. And when the war outbroke in 1939 and the Polish state was crushed in the German Blitzkrieg on autumn, September-October 1939. So people like Dmowski, they had the chance, let's say, to join the winning side, right? Because the new German Nazi occupational regime, it offered some level of acceptance for the people with German descent, right? With German origin, right? And Dmowski was one of those players, so one of those people. So basically, some people decided to subscribe to so-called Volkslist. So a Volkslist was a list of people who considered themselves as Germans. Of course, we have an issue of opportunism here, but to be honest, Dmowski was not considering himself Pole. He was playing in football in Poland. He was playing for the Polish national team. However, he never considered himself as a true Polish man. So Dmowski played. He was one of the biggest stars of the national team of Third Reich, which was playing friendly matches despite the war, at least until 1943. He was one of the stars of the local football German competition. And then when the war ended, Dmowski remained in Germany. He was considered as traitor. He was considered as traitor in Poland. To that extent that, especially in the communist time, we will get to that today during the lecture. So in communist time, Dmowski was, I would say, expressively erased from the history of Polish football. So all of goals he scored, all of the titles he scored as a top goal scorer, for instance, it was erased. It did not count. You couldn't, in 40s and 50s, you could not read about Dmowski in an almanac or a chronicle of Polish football. He remained in Germany. Never get back to Poland, and his name, later on, the name was reinstated in the historical archive of Polish football. But that character of Ernest Dmowski remained a symbol of treason, of national interest on the level of football. How paradoxical football can be. Dmowski scored 4 goals, but none of them was the first one. The first goal in that match, Poland-Brazil 5-6 in the World Cup 1938. The first one was scored through the penalty kick by Fryderyk Szerwka. Another interesting case. Fryderyk Szerwka was a star player of the club you already know, so it's Warta Poznań. And then Szerwka again was collaborating with Germans. Was collaborating with Germans during World War II. Was serving in a German police uniform. However, the main difference between Dmowski and Szerwka is that Dmowski definitely chose the other side. With Szerwka, there's a debate among historians of both Lech and Poznań, both Warta, and Poznań football, that Szerwka, well, he decided, because of his partial German origin, he decided to serve in the German uniform. But however, he was still helping people. He was still helping Polish people he knew from before the war. So, well, more disputable situation. However, this is a paradox. Both guys who scored all the goals in a single match of the World Cup, or Polish match at the World Cup in the mid-war period, they both ended up in German uniform. The photo you can see here. This is Legia Warszawa Stadium in the 40s. You have a match between the Luftwaffe and the German police. So the Germans did not allow any sport activity by the Polish people. So it was strictly forbidden to play football, and all of the sport infrastructure. All of the sport infrastructure was taken by the Germans. The control was taken by the Germans, so they use it for their purposes. However, you cannot ban football. Everyone knows that you cannot ban football. So on the next slide, on the next photo, you can see an illegal football match being played under the German occupation. And the guy in the middle, this is an interesting story. You could be sentenced to death for participation in that match. You could be sent to concentration camp like Auschwitz for participation in that match. So it was highly strictly illegal. However, throughout that time, Polish people in Warsaw were consistently playing football in so-called secret, spontaneous tournaments and matches. The guy in the middle in the white shirt, the goalkeeper, this is Henryk Boruch. This is most probably 1941 or 1942, a football match on the right bank of Wisła in Warsaw. That guy later on played in the national team since when the war ended. So here you can see him as a goalkeeper in a secret competition. Well, it's not that secret anymore, because you can see the crowds that watch football. People were hungry for football. They wanted to see football, and they needed to participate, despite it was that danger in those days. So basically, of course, we could talk much more. About football in that period. Just wanted to give you some highlights that show you how important the game politically was, even though the war was being conducted in that time. And then we move to the next and the last part of the history I would like to share with you today. And I think we still have like 15 minutes, so I think this is the last thing we're gonna do. Today. Also, through all those technical difficulties. Sorry, guys, I do my best to deliver the lecture to you, but yeah, we face some problems, and I don't think they are truly linked with my computer or internet connection. But nevertheless, yeah, these are hard times. We need to keep tight and keep fighting. So no worries, guys. I will share the presentation with you, of course. So In 1944, again, we need to make a long story very, very, very short. I will be talking about that 90 minutes once we end our classes, because the next classes I'm going to deliver online for my Polish students about the historical political history of Poland. So yeah, we will be extensively talking about the thing I tried to explain to you in a couple of minutes. Guys, in 1944, the Poland was reborn. Poland was politically reborn again. However, under auspices of Soviet Union and with communist rule. It is not that simple, but I'm just making a long story very short. The thing you need to know is that the borders of Poland, they have changed significantly. So on the map, you can see how the border looked like before 1939, where the World War II outbroke. So through political turbulences, through political through political changes and geographical changes, Poland was cut off in the east, regaining some territories in north and west, German territories in return. However, it meant, for example, that two traditional Polish cities like Vilnius and Lviv remain behind the border, so remain on the Soviet side of the border, with Lviv, as you already know, being a very important point, a very important city in the history of Polish football. Nevertheless, you have a new Poland under new political regimes. You have a Cold War that will start in a minute. Then you have a period of Stalinism. So we will operate now in totally different circumstances, right? So once again, football. Sorry, it's not. Yeah, we should be here. So once again, football proves its usefulness. Football proves its usefulness in explaining. So once again, football proves its usefulness in explaining the political history of Poland. So new borders and new political regime. So they create new circumstances, new environment for football to be operated. So once we have new lands, you have new clubs. All right, cities like Wrocław and Gdańsk, they were not Polish. They were not Polish, right? Before the war. Now they are. So new football clubs are founded. 1945. You have a club, Śląsk Wrocław. So you can observe in the crest. It's located here. I will enlarge it for you. So yeah, you can see both. You can see both Polish and Silesian Eagle. You can see both Polish Silesian Eagle, because that club was just another tool to symbolize the Polish political power over those new lands. You have Lechia Gdańsk, founded in 1945 as Baltia, then renamed to Lechia. So again, a traditional name. Sorry. And then 1948, you have the foundation of Górnik Zabrze. Zabrze used to be a German city before the war. This is important because Górnik will be one of the most important and powerful football teams in communist Poland. I will explain it to you later on. You have also clubs that are formed by repatriates. Pogoń Szczecin, again, Stettin, a German city before the war, then after 1945, a part of Polish state, and a club named Pogoń, renamed to Pogoń in 1955. You have Polonia Bytom, which is renewed in 1945. If you compare the crest, I will try to show it to you. If you compare the crest with Pogoń Lwów, so the club that remained behind the border, on the Soviet side of the border. So you can easily see the similarities in colors, in the shape of the crest. So those repatriates that were trying to reinstate their favorite clubs, they were basing on their heritage, despite the clubs were being reinstated in different circumstances and in the other place. And then you have clubs like Lech Poznań. Lech Poznań was founded in 1922. However, in the mid-war Poland, it was not that popular and powerful. But uh, since Warta Poznań was considered to be a middle-class club supported by intelligentsia, by upper classes of society, Lech Poznań was a traditional working class club. So it was useful for the communists to invest, let's say, in that club to promote it, because, well, that fell into their general political doctrine. And then you have a category of clubs captured by the communist regime or created by communist regime. Clubs like Gwardia Warszawa. So Gwardia Warszawa is a very interesting example of a club, of clubs that you could observe all across the Eastern Bloc. So clubs operated and supported and supervised by Ministry of Interior, so it's secret police, right? Secret political police. And then Legia, with its popularity and reputation, Legia is a classic example of captured club. So the club which is captured by communist regimes. So all that legacy, all that heritage, which was linked to Piłsudski's army, so Polish legions, was cut off, and then the Legia was transformed into the club of the communist Polish army. So for many reasons, this is most probably the main one why Legia is hated so much all across the country, because as a central military sport club, as it was announced in the late 40s, we're going to be talking about it in a minute, Legia had a right to call footballers to army. All right. So any skillful footballer all across the country and a bright starlet, 18 years old, oh yeah, you should be in the army. Right. So Legia had the possibility to, let's say, capture for 2 years, because the military service was for 2 years. Legia had the opportunity to capture footballers from different clubs without paying, let's say, transfer amount or the club who lost the players. So yeah, many great Polish footballers played in Legia for 2 or 3 years, and then they were coming back to their clubs, to their cities. It's another interesting topic. However, we're going to share it throughout other meeting, hopefully in the classroom. Guys, I miss meeting in the classroom. It's just like football without fans is nothing. Like teaching without students is nothing. I know you're there. I know you're listening. I can see that 40 people are following the presentation on YouTube, but it's not the same. Hope we can meet again soonly and in safe conditions. All right, that phenomenon of capturing, controlling every element of social activity by the communist regime. It's also linked with the internal political structure of Poland in that period. So I will close that so you can see the whole slide. The power conflicts in the inner circle of communist authorities, which can be explained as the rivalry of different departments, different ministries. It also affected football. Because some particular clubs were considered to be subordinated to particular ministries, like clubs like Legia Warszawa and Śląsk Wrocław, considered the military clubs, so they were under the auspices of Ministry of National Defense. You have clubs governed, patronage by militia, so by Ministry of Interior, as I said, clubs like Gwardia Warszawa and Wisła Kraków. You have clubs which used to have the elements of the working class tradition in their legacy. So they are supported as clubs for the workers, because, well, it's basically communism is about caring about the workers. So you have Widzew and Lech, and you have clubs. I call them industrial, but basically, they're coal mining. The coal was a strategic resource in that time, and were the biggest and most worthy export good that Polish economy had in communist time. So the clubs in Upper Silesia, they got extreme financial support from authorities. So they had a possibility to offer best wages, best conditions for the footballers. So Górnik Zabrze and Ruch Chorzów are examples of those powerful clubs from Upper Silesia, supported by public money. All of them were supported by public money, but the industry of coal mining, they were more wealthy than any other branch of industry in Poland. And then you have a very interesting case of what I call it victimized clubs. We will be back to that issue in pan-European, pan-Central European scale, because pretty soon you will get a lecture about about football and politics in Eastern Bloc. So you will see that those clubs represented a very particular phenomenon, victimized clubs. So clubs which fans consider themselves to be victimized by the communist regime because of their national, patriotic, anti-communist feeling and attitudes. So in Poland, I would say Polonia Warszawa, Cracovia, and Warta, to some extent, can be considered as those victimized clubs. So fans of Polonia Warszawa, they pretty frequently complain about Legia getting more political and financial support from communist regime and being promoted to the top #1 Warsaw club, because before the war Polonia was more popular, was better in terms of football than Legia was, and Polonia then slumped in the 40s and 50s, being relegated for 40 years. Being relegated for 40 years. But well, on the other hand, you can say that Polonia was the first champion of Poland once the football competition was reinstated after the war. Nevertheless, we will get back to that, because this is also, let's say, a deeper social phenomenon. All right, guys, it's almost 11:15, so I think we can make pause. And we will get back to football in communist Poland next week. So thank you again for participation. I will share the link to the presentation with you through email. Sorry again for those technical problems. I was testing that presenting both me in the window on the bottom left corner. And it was all working. I don't know why some problems occur today, but once again, sorry. I do my best to provide the classes for you. I will continue to test this platform, and if that problem repeats next week, we most probably may move to Google Meet. But I will let you know. No worries at this point. So guys, we'll make a pause here. Thank you so much. Thank you for participation. And I will say once again, I hope you're all safe and fit and healthy. And I hope that this coronavirus stuff will end as soon as possible, and we will have an opportunity to meet one more in the classroom throughout the semester. If not, I hope it's not going to happen, but if not, I will inform you in detail about the exam and all the other stuff. So no worries. The course is on. We continue to fight, and yeah, we keep the fight, guys. Take care. That's my most important thing I want to share with you. Take care. Stay safe, and see you next week. Thank you so much, and sorry for the technical problems today again. Bye, guys.